Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
I wouldn't want to be in any other place today but with you all to talk about what is going on. I think we have so many questions. Every day's been tough waking up to this reality, but it's the community, the strength we have together. And we've been on this journey. We have people in this room that have been on longer journeys and have told us how we have to pick ourselves up, that we know our country has been through tough times and survived it. And this group is going to figure this out together. And there's no better place than to be but in community, so we can figure out how we're going to move forward. And I'm not here to tell you how it's going to happen for you individually. Some of us are still really in despair and tears are come very easily. Some of us are angry and pissed. I'm a combination of wanting to be punching and crying at the same time, because it's hard to realize that people voted for something like this that seems so morally wrong in a lot of ways, right? But we're here. And so today we put together a show because what we do is we always plan for our next week. And I want to tell you something. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for this community together. Our team is getting actually stronger. We're getting people that are signing up to be together. So we are planning to be here every Friday, to be here during the week, anytime anybody wants to reach out, because we have work to do eventually when we feel like we're ready. A lot of analyzing to do. We have some things to listen and learn. But today, we're going to concentrate more on our feelings about it. We're just so excited to be here in a way. It's comforting. And we have two great guests. And Sam Rasoul, Delegate Sam Rasoul is here. And I know a lot of you love him and respect him like we do. And I know I'm so glad he could be with us. And we also have Simon Rosenberg from Hopium Chronicles here to kind of give us some other stuff that's on our mind, maybe a little bit more analysis, looking at the races, looking at what he knows, looking at the data, and just also he's feeling this too. Sam's feeling it. We're all feeling it. So that's why we're in community. So I really appreciate you being here. And I want you to remember, we'll talk about it in our power chat. Virginia, we have a lot to be proud of, and we did a lot. And Virginia is that beacon, right? We know we built this thing and we have numbers to prove it. And this is going to still be our life preserver and beacon, and other groups will hopefully build off of that together. So welcome in the room. If you're new to our community, let us know. Put your stuff in the chat. Let us know how you're doing. And, you know, I want to also, so always thank you to our patrons. It's always good to be grateful. We're able to do this every week, and we hope we could actually make this media thing, this show, go bigger so we can build this resistance. Not a resistance, but an underground way for us to communicate. So thank you for being a supporter. We hope to gain some more supporters today. And you can always listen to us on the Apple Podcast and Spotify. So let's get right to it. I would like just to get right in. I just want to say you're on the Friday Power Lunch. And yes, it's November 8th. And it's been a motherfucking bad week. So we're going to make it good today. So let's bring up Benel, Norton, and Carrie Short.
Hi.
Hello.
I had to say a
Hello.
dirty word. I had to say motherfucker. I
It was
did.
going to come out. It was going to come out sooner or later. It's been a week. It's been a month this week.
It has
It's been a month this week.
So
I tell you, I think one of the things I'm feeling right now, and I think just all feelings are welcome at this point, and I think that we're good. We're good at that here. But I think one of the things that I'm feeling is, once again, we just expected the dangers and disqualifiers to come through.
Yeah.
And they just didn't. And it's because we all believe in that promise. so much. We do. We are looking out toward the future. We wouldn't be involved in grassroots organizing if we didn't believe in the future.
Right.
So I am not going to give up on that promise. I'm not giving up. And I know you aren't either. But one of the things that I have been doing this week, just to kind of pull me out, is that I'm spending time affirming my friends and colleagues. I think that they need to hear that our democratic ideals do matter in this country, right? So I'm already, I'm already here, all of us probably heard that. The other thing that I'm thinking about is being present for strangers. You just mentioned we're getting new members. We're getting people hitting us up for things we've never seen them, or maybe they volunteered on their own, but they just weren't with the group. So I think another thing, like the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be there for strangers. And I'm going to encourage anyone who is, thinking about this. We saw it in 2016, a lot of grassroots groups forming. Many of those didn't make it. They didn't make it to this year. But if we all get together and affiliate with Network Nova, it's like we have instant infrastructure. So I would encourage anyone who is either thinking about a new group or wanting to start a neighborhood group, which is so great, or you're hearing of new groups forming, please encourage them to get involved with Network Nova so that we can support each other at that level. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Well, but I'm going to toss it over to you. And I have to say, I know, Carrie, when you have lipstick on, that you got
I'm getting serious.
It's really tough. It is the stage one where you have to put lipstick on and put our makeup on sometimes and carry on. And, so Fennell,
right.
How are you going on in your mind, my friend?
So we know that there's the 7 stages of grief.
Yes.
And I come in and out of them. And at first I just couldn't breathe. I just couldn't breathe. And then I could. And I am so angry. I'm angry. I'm really, really mad. And I'm not mad at any particular group. I'm just angry at anybody who voted for him. And I don't care if that was a white woman, a white man, a black man, a Hispanic man. I don't care. I'm angry. And I feel like, when we do think about the percentages, I can look at groups and say, well, I guess that means that to you, we probably are never going to be good enough. And it's hurtful. And it's anger and it's hurt. And I also feel like so many people who you just kept wanting to participate and be part of this, and they didn't. That makes me angry too. Mm-hmm. And so then I step away from my anger just to say, what is it that I have to do next? Or how do I think about getting through the next day? And then here's what happens. I think about the fact that there are so many people who have no idea what they voted for. No idea. And that's good for us. And then there's all of us. And I'll bet you, when you take that number and you take the number of people, the millions who didn't participate at all, then you got something. And so that's where my hope comes in, to say that we get to do this again. And you guys know how I always think about, Linda Hersham. She is my anchor. Mm-hmm. We've been through all this before. We've been through slavery, the abolitionist movement. They had none of the tools and resources and the bandwidth that we have today. Mm-hmm. We've been through the civil rights movement, the women's suffrage. None of them have the bandwidth that we have today. And so through all of my fright and afraid, as a woman of color, as a Black woman, someone sent me today, they are sending out these horrible things about, you're going to be picked up and choose a plantation and all that stuff. It is a different kind of fear. But I am thankful for this community. And I am also hopeful that we know how to fight. We know how to fight. And I have lots of sisters and brothers on this phone who, when we figure it out, when we're ready, because I'm not quite ready yet, that we're going to get it right. We're going to make it through. we know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, especially we have a few minutes before Simon gets on, is that some of the things that I've been doing, I think some of you maybe have been doing, I just deleted Twitter. And for the team here in this room, I was on Twitter for our work, right? And there's a lot of good people on Twitter that I would work with, like Tom Bonnier and Simon Rosenberg and other people. But Thursday night, I was like, fuck this, man. I just was like, boom, bye, TikTok, bye, TV off. Everybody shut up, because I don't want to hear these pundits on TV just pontificate and say things that I don't, because then I have to protect myself. And then I had to tell my family how I felt. And I wanted to make sure they knew. For some of them there's a few maybe out there in my family that may have voted a certain way. I'm not going to be the same person. I'm sorry, you can't expect that. And like you, I think it's okay to let people know that. I think it's okay to feel like you're not going to affirm that these people voted for this. That doesn't mean I have to approve it. And like Jess Piper reminds us, and other people, as part of the resistance, is to make sure we don't obey in advance. And I ain't going to do that, right, Carrie?
Yeah. And Catherine, this is one of the other things that I think is important. You know, you know, uh, people knew. At this point, I don't want to hear about anybody saying that somebody should have did this or should have did that. It was very clear. We knew who this man was. Everybody knew who he was.
Right.
You knew who he was. So I don't care if it was a man with his bag on his head against this man. Anybody who needed convincing not to vote for him, we already had a problem. So I think, let's just take it for what it is.
Right.
Take it for what it is, whether it's racism, misogynism, you can call it whatever you want. Because a paper bag could have walked across the stage and that'd have been good enough for me. And that we had to try to force Americans to say, oh, you shouldn't vote for this person because of that. That's a problem.
Yes. Those are the perennial disqualifiers have never applied to him ever. And that's kind of the anger. And that's the anger that we all felt in 2017 when we all got together and formed grassroots groups. I mean, we were angry, and I think it's okay to be angry, but that shit happened in 2016 and it happened again today. So the anger isn't getting us anywhere. It's okay to be angry, but at this point, it's the way our country is.
It's the 7 stages, right? The 7 stages. But I believe that we can, that we're going to be okay. I think the folks who don't know what they voted for, I mean, that happens. I mean, just think about what happened with the children at the border. Even the folks you didn't think about it said, oh, this is too much. This is just a bridge too far. So I do think that there's accountability there, and we have to be part of that accountability.
Yeah.
And so that's what our job is going to be the folks. We are the people we are the guardrails now. We're the ones who will make them accountable.
And I like that transition, because I know that what we're going to be doing, and this group in the room is going to be doing together, is being we're going to have to think differently. We're going to have to reimagine. We already were planning on that, even regardless who won. Yes. Look, friends, in Virginia, we want to do some reimagining about how we campaign. We see the exhaustion in it. There's some things that aren't working. We need to kind of listen, learn, analyze, do that kind of work. But we know we have so many days to actually prepare and use our power that we can do on the executive level to try to put in protections where we can. And people, going to be working on all these levels. But for us,
all is not lost.
Yeah, and I'm sad. I'm kind of surprised I'm talking this way, because
I know.
So I wanted just to say I'm done. I'm sort of out. It just felt so heavy. But then now I'm already going, well, and Virginia is special because we have a race and we have a governor that's awesome, and we can really have a constitutional amendment for reproductive rights. So this room, we can get some stuff done, and we're going to reimagining how the party operates. And we did it in Virginia. We worked really, well, but we still have work to do in our rural areas. Karen Baker, all the people that ran in rural, we ran up numbers. Carrie Short and her group ran up numbers in Virginia Beach, where we saw movement we haven't seen before. And we'll get to those numbers later. But we did, there is some worrying trends, though. We're seeing in blue areas more red movement. We have to do
I
the work.
think
Yeah.
absolutely. And you know what we're going to do? We did make
Right.
progress in terms of getting grassroots at the table in campaign planning. We got so close. Susan Wagner helped us get so close, right? We're
Yeah.
so close. So we all need to push this, that grassroots deserves a place at the table, because we saw Elon Musk try to buy a ground game.
Right.
It didn't work. They didn't have a ground game. And guess what? Did it matter? I mean, this is something that I'm excited to talk about with
right.
all of you to figure this out, because we've been trying to reimagine this canvassing and all of that.
Well, I think too, you know, we'll get to Simon. I want to invite him to come up with us. And Fennell is going to interview Simon Rosenberg of Hopium Chronicles. And I want to say, oligarchs and all the Russian stuff, this is big stuff, right? Oh, look who's here, our friend. Wouldn't want to be when any other space. Simon.
So yes,
I'm going to let you go at it. So thank you, Simon.
Yes, I was going to say our very bestest friend of the show, Simon Rosenberg from Hopium Chronicles. And Simon, I am so happy to be with you today. And one of the things that I just want to say when we were having our chats before, I have to say Fox News is powerful, and we forget that. And that's the most watched network of all the networks. And so that's a powerful thing to get over in terms of just the lies and all of that kind of stuff. And I just think that's important to acknowledge that for all the things that we've done, we have to try to overcome that too. But Simon, thank you for being here today. And I don't have any questions. I just want to hear you talk about what you want to talk about.
Well, so first of all, let me just say thank you to all of you and to this remarkable Friday Power Lunch. One of the bright spots of this tough election is the growing power and influence of the Democratic grassroots. I mean, we saw it in this election. And I know Carrie mentioned this question about why do we do all this if they don't run ads and door knock and they still win? I mean, these are really important questions that have to be aired out in the family. And I think the people that ran the Harris campaign have a lot of explaining to all of us to do, and we need to hear from them soon about all this. But I think one of the bright spots is the fact that we raised more money than we've ever raised before. We had more volunteers and more direct voter contact than we've ever had before. All of the organizations that are part of this new Democratic grassroots, this new muscle we have, are growing in sophistication and power. All of you are getting more elections under your belts and learning your way through this. And part of the reason I founded Hopium is I tell the story that, for 30 years, I advised leaders in Washington of our party. And now I'm advising all of you. And frankly, I thought it was my highest and best use to take my knowledge and experience to make it available for free, right? And Hopium's a free site. And to the proud patriots and the citizens that I had met along the way that wanted to more meaningfully contribute to their democracy in a time of crisis. And so I think, first of all, this kind of work has been a bright spot. Second is picking up on something that Katherine said, you've already reinvented and reimagined. The party needs to join you in that process, right? You guys are already building. I mean, Katherine and Fennell, you guys all know from the early times that we met and spoke, and Susan Wagner, is that you've innovated. You've created new ways of doing things, this Zoom-based organizing, these communities that are flatter and all the things, not the sort of top-down party infrastructure, but this sort of more nimble, where more of your time is spent doing work and less of your time is doing the stuff that parties also have to do, right? Which is there's a lot of internal stuff that goes on. And, you guys are embodying doing more and worrying less, right? My phrase from Hopium in every way. And I think it's one of the reasons that this is growing is that this is very satisfying to be in this kind of community with so many other people. And so I think that the Democratic grassroots this was a big year for us and big cycle. And also to give yourself more credit about the level of innovation that you represent yourselves, right? And by the way, I should have said money, direct voter contact, 80 million postcards. Sorry, Robbin, on that, which is amazing. And then finally, we also have to recognize that as disappointing as the presidential election was, we had wins. We're going to end up winning many of these close Senate races in the same battleground states. We picked up a whole lot of state legislative seats in Wisconsin after the Fair Maps was implemented, something some of you worked on and last year. We made meaningful gains in North Carolina, right? We won the governorship there. We broke the supermajority that they had. We won a bunch of really critical statewide races there. We won Ruben Gallego's race in Arizona, or about to. We're going to win in Nevada, right? So, and Pennsylvania is going to go into a recount. We don't know what's going to happen there. I mean, I don't think that's over yet. I mean, that could be a big, boost for us if that ends up working out. And we also don't know what's going to happen in the House. I mean, the House Democrats are very optimistic this thing is going to flip. But as I wrote in Hopium today, this was a close election. This was not a blowout election. This was, Donald Trump overperformed. And I wanted to say this because this is going to get heavily litigated in the family in the next few months. We went into Election Day with Harris having had the best polls of her entire election that past week. We were ahead of 2020 in the early vote in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nebraska 2, and Wisconsin. All of the major forecasters, except one, tipped over to predicting her winning, including Nate Silver and The Economist and 538 and Larry Sabato's crystal ball. And so, we all went in, and I think the campaign went in, believing that on Election Day we were going to win. And this is really important because the polls appear to, the average polling miss in an election is 5 to 6 points. Believe it or not, that's a huge number. It looks like the polls are off between 2 to 4 points in our favor, right? Trump did better than public polling. So first of all, nobody was misled or lied to or anything else, right? Jenna O'Malley Dillon released a video 2 Sundays before the election saying that I am confident we are going to win. That is not, I feel good and am optimistic, right? That's the next stage above. Clearly, Trump got a bigger vote on Election Day than I think even his own campaign expected. Their campaign, there was Sunday and Monday, there were news stories about blame game. They were angry and frustrated and pissed off. They thought they were going to lose. Maggie Haberman reported that the Trump campaign told her that they were going to lose North Carolina. So Trump had a very strong Election Day performance, and we're going to get a lot more data. And part of what is people need to be patient. I mean, for example, one of these things is about Trump not getting more votes than he got last time. That's probably not going to be true when all the votes are counted, right? Like there's still probably 10 million votes that still have to be counted, including 5 million in California, which will take weeks to count. People have to slow down a little bit on this thing that's circulating around about the results being manipulated. I think let's get all the votes in and let's look at everything. It will change. The second thing is this. If I'm just for my time, I'll be quick. The second thing is that I wrote about this today, and this is something that I'm going to become very adamant about. And for those of you who are sort of early Hopium people, you heard me talk more about this a year and a half ago, is, we had really significant Democratic drop-off in performance, in actual vote and performance in the big Democratic states where there were no competitive elections. And this is a huge problem for us, because what's happened is that when Democrats don't vote, the country looks more Republican than it actually is. I mean, and if we had had strong Democratic performance in California and Illinois and in New York and in New Jersey, and we didn't have races in Texas and Florida that were competitive, we would have won the popular vote in this election. And that would have psychologically mattered to us and to our country and to the understanding of whether Trump has a mandate or not. And so this idea that the Democratic Party is 7 battleground states as opposed to 50 states and all the Democrats in all the states is something that we have to evolve beyond. I think that the over-amping on targeting and sort of micro, we're losing the forest in the trees, right? Like we need to be a national party with national messages. We have so much money now. Between the Harris campaign and the super PAC, they spent $2 billion from August to election day. I mean, they could have spent $50 million on national ads reaching all Democrats across the whole country to engage Democrats, or to have social media campaigns, or to have had the DNC send out in the campaign, send you communications that wasn't always about fundraising, about ads and helping you become, an information warrior for them. They didn't do any of that, right? I
Hey,
mean, they
Simon,
didn't. Yeah,
I
go ahead.
just have to stop you there to
Yeah.
say, I'm so excited to hear you say that. And because you said that we're already innovating, I can tell you, looking at Katherine and Robbin and Stair and Carrie, we have said that like 100 times.
Yeah, no, and look, you guys should know is that I had a meeting with the campaign. I mean, I'm not going to talk about my internal conversations with these folks other than to say, I had a meeting with the campaign about this in early October about the communications going to Democratic grassroots around the country being demobilizing and being depressing because we kept getting emails telling us we were losing when we weren't actually losing, right? And I didn't really understand what they were doing, and I still don't really understand, by the way. I think we all know that there's some kind of study showing that people give more money when they're scared, but also people, what we need a second study, which is, yeah, they give more money, but then they demobilize and they don't do work and they go into the back room and they check out and they go into psychological duress, right? Like, I think I think the performance of the Democratic digital fundraising community was unacceptable this cycle, and it is not sustainable over time. We need to be told that we're good and strong and not that we're shitty and weak and losing. And it's just sort of a really basic fundamental thing that we have to work through and become intolerant of, by the way, I think, right? Because I think it's unacceptable. And I think it's a bunch of very young people who are essentially eating the seed corn, right, of the family. And in the way that young people could do because they don't understand about things happening over time, right? And particularly this current generation. I have 3 Gen Z kids who can't think, can't plan for 2 days from now, let alone, 2 months from now. So that's another thing. And so I want to go back to this point that this was not a red wave election. This was not some kind of blowout election. Trump's going to end up winning the popular vote, but probably a half a point to a point. The Senate is almost 50-50. The House is almost 50-50, and he barely won the battlegrounds. And so this was a very close election where they don't have a huge mandate. The country hasn't swung wildly to the right, right? This isn't Reagan's election in 1980. This was an unexpected victory, but not a big victory. And we have to distinguish between the two, in my view. And then finally, I just want to say this because as the Hopium guy, right? And I have to say this is that I think the next few years is going to be really, really, really hard. And we have to get ready for that, right? Like we can't be surprised by that. We can't be defeated by it. We can't let it, I think this is going to be some of the hardest things that any of us will ever go through in our lives. What's about to happen?
So Simon, when you say hard, can you just elaborate a little bit on what that looks like? Because I have something in my head that may be very different.
I don't know that I want to do that.
Okay.
To be honest, I don't know because I don't really know what he's going to do, and there is going to be enormous efforts by the Republican businessmen around him to persuade him to not do some of the more extreme things that he could do to the American economy. There's sort of different buckets, right? There's the economic damage, there's the damage to women and families and the American people, there's damage to our national security posture. I mean, we could spend the rest of the show going through all this. and what we, with Trump, it's always the worst case, right? Like
Mhm.
it's never the best case. It's always the worst case. But some of the economic carnage he could create, I think there's going to be an enormous effort by the business community and by his allies like Elon Musk and others to not do some of the more extreme things that, the two big economic things that he could do to be very damaging to the country is the tariffs and also mass deportation, which would be devastating to rural communities in Virginia and everywhere else, because you will lose all of your workers in rural areas, right? Many of your, cases. And so the mass deportation strategy is an assault on rural America that is unprecedented if it happens. Rural America already has massive worker shortages. There will be worker shortages on scales that are beyond comprehension if they move on the mass deportation strategy. And so it's among the most damaging economic things that Donald Trump could possibly do, in addition to whatever you think about the morality of it, right? But then finally, let me just come out the other end of it and say the good news is, for those of you in Virginia, is that you have an election to go work on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and so, you can do more and worry less, and all of us can help you from around the country, sort of take time and to support you in this. Abby Spanberger is an amazing person and a great leader. And honestly, I think she's one of my favorite politicians that I've ever worked with in my entire career. And what a blessing it's going to be to go make her governor, right? And because she will also be a great governor. And she's one of you. She came out of the Democratic grassroots, right? She started with Mom's Demand, was sort of how she began, right, her career. And she was a suburban housewife that got political, and and so she's amazing. And we have to protect the gains that we made in the state legislature 2 years ago that many of us all worked with you on a year and a half ago. So the good news for you is that you've got a way to channel the ugliness that's going to be happening in Washington into concrete action in Virginia. And I think you'll have an opportunity to be able to reach out to Democratic grassroots, and I'll be helping at Hopium like I did last time. As you all know, Hopium played a huge role in our success in the Virginia State Assembly and Senate races last time. And we'll be there with you, right? And I will say, I don't really know what I'm going to do with Hopium. I mean, I'm just getting through the end of the year, but in all likelihood, as I talked about it today, and I just want to give you advice on words. I think we should view ourselves as the opposition and not the resistance. And I think this is something we have to talk about, is that the opposition is a formal opposition party to the governing party. And that's who I think we should see ourselves of. We're not a bunch of Jedi warriors out in some faraway planet, right? I mean, we're the Democratic Party of the United States, and we are the opposition party to the Republican Party. And I called Hopium today the ferocious opposition. That's what I'm going to settle on for now. And the spirited, engaged, and intense. I think we have to use words around as Kamala Harris suggested yesterday, that our opposition to him is going to be ferocious, right? We don't describe, we'll be loyal to the country, but it's going to be ferocious. And we're not going to obey in advance, and we're not going to roll over and play dead. We're going to fight like hell, right? And I don't know what that means yet, too. But I think that I just want to conclude by saying thank you. I have met many new people all across the country in the last couple of years, and part of what sustained me was all of you, right? And all of your passion and love of country and your patriotism and your grit and your willingness to go to work and roll up your sleeves and innovate and try new things, and to not accept unacceptable status quo that are letting down our ability to execute and perform and defend our democracy, which is really what this organization's been about, at its core, right? And so you're challenging the rest of us to do better. And I look forward to continue to be a partner with you in that important work.
So Simon, Katherine, we fight over who gets to talk to you. So I want Katherine to
I know we have, yes, we love it. We love that we built this together. I mean, we are continuing. I mean, my thought is, if everybody can hear him, I know somebody said my problem with my microphone, but we will continue to build. And my goal is to build even this platform bigger. I think when I was listening to Midas Touch, thinking about those next steps are going to be really important. How we take in news, how we communicate, and thinking about preparing for this time ahead. So I just want to thank you, because I know we have Sam Rasoul coming on next.
Yep.
And a wonderful Sam Rasoul delegate in Virginia. And we'll have you back on. And here he is. Hello, Sam Rasoul.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks,
bye,
Simon.
Simon. Thank you. Bye for now. So can you hear me okay, friend?
I can. Thank you.
Believe it or not, I'm trying to talk louder. I don't know what's going on over here, but when I, woke up on Tuesday with that just overwhelming dread, and I thought about, could I even do this show this week? Could I do what you feel sort of responsible for your family and other people. And then when we talked about possible people to come on, I immediately thought of you. We've been through a lot together. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Katherine and team, to the power lunch. The work continues. We press on to Simon's point about elections next year. I enjoy chairing education, so please keep the majority in mind, and that in Virginia we certainly won't be bored in moving forward. That's for sure. I will jump on to a few slides and roll through some things, just some quick thoughts. And friends, if you all will a few thoughts together, and I hope that we can talk about how we should be moving forward. As you all know, my family motto is: we always tell the truth, always be kind, never give up, and truth, love, grit really moves us along in lots of different ways. We remember those fateful early days, but I think the three things for us to where our emotions should be. I never have been in despair about the world. Enraged, yes, I've been enraged by the world, but never despair. I cannot afford despair. You can't tell the children that there is no hope. And so we cannot be without the absence of hope, and this is critically important. When we talk about appreciating this moment, it was about a year ago myself that I went through a personal grieving process, and I didn't know what that was. After days and weeks of very emotional time for me personally, I realized, for the first time in my life, I'm grieving, and it was different for me, and I had to keep in mind that we got to keep moving. It's scientifically proven. You just keep moving from hour to hour, day to day, week to week, and that's how we move forward. And in that movement, and it's okay to have a bad day, and grant yourself that grace. I remember waking up and just feeling like, today is not going to be a good day, and it's okay, because I know I'll wake up tomorrow and it'll be a little bit better. But we grieve, for ourselves, and thinking about the real consequences that will impact us over the next 4 years. There is no doubt about that. For our friends and our neighbors who are going to feel this, and then certainly for our future, we keep all of that in mind. We seek truth, and some of this has been alluded to, and we don't want to go crazy into this stuff, but I think there are some basic things that we can already begin to surmise. There was, as was alluded to, we did have a turnout issue. While there are still millions of votes to be counted, we can see kind of where we're at right now. There was a turnout issue that we'll have to face head on eventually. Number two, as much as we saw messages that were trying to go towards Republicans, the Republican turnout for Democrats did not improve. To me, as somebody who championed the Green New Deal, as somebody who believes in many progressive politics. I think being true to ourselves and finding a better way to communicate policies that are important to us is important. And I've always differentiated between what I believe in and then how I engage folks. For example, I'm very proud of a lot of the Republican colleagues, the relationships that I have with Republican colleagues, because we can get things done for my region on issues that we both care about. And I differentiate that from, my ideology on, being pro-choice, et cetera. And I think that that's important, and we should never run away from what's core to our values. And then number three, there's more and more data that shows that we have now, as Democrats, become the party of the elite, that the wealthier Americans now are breaking towards us, and we're losing the working middle class who helped build this country and who helped build this party. And so if there's this disconnect, and we'll continue to unpack this, to me, we'll certainly need to continue moving in that direction. So, just like we thought of over the past 8 years, what's most important is who we are, and not who he is. And we'll need to continue to ask those critical questions, to be brave enough, to have enough courage in the coming weeks and months to do that. Right now, we know we live in a world where anything is possible. So it'll be important to be in the battle. And number three, I think we find hope. Simon mentioned several bits of light that I think are important. We had many down ballot wins. We were able to hold on to the Democratic governorship in North Carolina. We were able to have some abortion protections in several states, increased minimum wage, and we won some state Supreme Court seats. And this is important. It's important for us to be able to objectively say, here's some glimmers of hope that we should hold on to and moving forward. I don't know how this will come off, because this just came to me over the past day or two, and so forgive me if you don't feel this, but I do. I think that we should stop trying to force women to be what we think America wants them to be. I feel like we did that some to Hillary. We did that some to Kamala. We should let women lead in their own right. And one person who I saw battle through Christchurch in that and battle through COVID was Jacinda Ardern, who was the Prime Minister of New Zealand. And I really felt as though New Zealand, which is a much smaller and different country for sure, but I felt like they let her be the compassionate and firm leader that she needed to be in difficult times. And so if we can just lean in to women and meet them where they're at as leaders, and stop trying to have consultants force them to become something that we think America wants them to be. Just let them lead, and I think we'll be just fine. And finally, we have some, I think, some energy that has been around this beautiful movement from Network Nova and the Women's Summit that you all have led here in Virginia. And let's not forget that there are so many wonderful grassroots folks. My first campaign that I ran, and in 2008, I was the youngest congressional candidate in America, and I ran on this ticket with this young senator from Illinois, and who became president. And I personally lost my race, but boy, I carried so many stories, and we shouldn't forget the people, the stories, the ones who are counting on us to push through. And I carry those people, and some of them no longer with us. I carry those people from 2008 personally, and all along the way. And we are doing that as well. And so I really thank this crowd, this team at the Friday Power Lunch, Network Nova, for continuing to be this consistent drumbeat over the past 8 years and saying, when we organize, when we vote, we win, and doing that in the best way possible. And for me, that has been a shining light. And to Katherine's point earlier, when the time is right, and it's not right here 3 days after the election, but when the time is right to say, how do we evolve? How do we remake this party? How do we make those connections? Why are we losing these, working class voters? How can we be true to our values and connect with people at the same time? I don't think we have to choose between them. And I know that there is scientifically proven paths. We've been training on it at the Impact Center for 8 years to make sure that this happens. So we appreciate all of the good work that you all are doing. Give yourself some time to grieve. Make sure that you stay open to the truth and try to gather all the information that you can, and then always be looking for those glimmers of hope.
And fight today for a better tomorrow. And I would say people want that slide deck. Do you mind sharing that in the chat or some way you can send it to us and we will send it out in our recap?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to share that.
Because sometimes we do have people that are sometimes walking and listening in. So I just love the slides and, seeing those numbers, like you said, from 2020. And it was the best election ever, right, Sam? So many people voted because of COVID and the mail-in, and we had voting behavior changes. And I don't think we'll have a lot to sort of look at there, but we also know the 4 years Republicans spent trying to figure out how to suppress our votes. They took out like 700 ballot places in Texas. Youngkin took out voters in our role. States were just purging votes. They're making it harder for mail-in, changing the rules, and that was their game. And I'm wondering, there's a little bit of that maybe in there, or just changing of voter behavior that we have to figure out,
Yeah, I think for sure. And look, to me, voting is an emotional decision. It is not a logical decision, and it's really tough on us on the left side of the equation because we want to talk about policy and liberal logic and things that make good quality sense. But the way that the brain works is you got to build trust with somebody first, and then you can deposit information. So let's build relationships, let's build trust, and find innovative ways of doing that. I will say that as the only Democrat elected in the western half of the state in the General Assembly, that doing some of that may force us to be in uncomfortable conversations, in uncomfortable spaces. And we're going to have to be able to stomach that, because I think sometimes our comfortability, it slows us down. So we'll have to be just at least 1% uncomfortable as we move forward.
Well, I love that you reminded us and everybody in the room that's been with Sam and all these years at the summit. You've been a great leader in teaching us so much. And that emotional part is really important to know, that it's not logical. So when we go what's the matter with these people? What are they doing? That I think stepping back from it and seeing where it wasn't logical, but there was an emotional thing that we're disconnected. And, between you and me, not to get too much in the details, we never talked about the growing inequality gap. We were trying to fix it with these little policies or throw money at it. But this has been growing for a long time and it's not closing. It's getting worse. And those people at the bottom, they're feeling it. And no matter what, this is a little bit of the emotional disconnect. So that really was helpful to me to remind myself. And lastly, what you also touched on with me that resonated was running from our values, because the first thing that, you start to hear people say is, we need to be less progressive and less this. But I agree with you totally that when we run with our values and we talk about those, it's how we message and talk about it is the big reason, right? And breaking through those bubbles. So yeah, I think that could be a problem. When you showed that one graph, did everybody see it? We didn't move Republican votes at all. We actually gained less. So trying to go to the right to track people, we went right. Do you have any words on that? I don't know if everybody saw the graph, but
It's right. So all of that work and trying to message things in such a way that will grab Republicans, and it didn't work. And again, we want to be able to work with our neighbors and certain Republicans. But I will say this: there was a gentleman who ran for statewide public office who was in office named Jason Kander in Missouri. And he wrote a piece that I'll credit to him in his framing, which was, it's like we're talking to a jury, and we go to each juror and we make our case. So we go to the first person and we say, hey, this is why you should vote for me, this, that, and the other. And they're like, okay. And then when you go to juror number 2 and you make a slightly different case, the first person looks back and says, well, that's not exactly what you said to me. And what we need to do is to be brave enough to say we're going to speak to the whole jury at the same time, because we've got a vision that is much better for America. We believe deeply in it, and we're going to bring everybody of good faith along. And that's where the future of liberal politics is.
Yeah, and I think you'll be leading in that with us. And I do feel when we think about planning for next year, and when I try to look ahead, like you said, to get out of this grief. And I'm so glad you shared your own personal story, because I think when you shared the hotline, I think there's that is true to recognize when we're not moving through it. I think we need to check in on each other when we recognize that these feelings aren't lifting, that we really are in this, it's a really tough place emotionally. So I think you're sharing your personal story and how that affects us is really important. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that, because I think we're all feeling that, but we got to look for the signs. I know you're a teacher, and the social emotional awareness that you have in this time is so important,
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And that's something, as a legislator, as chair of education, I think that social emotional foundation, really being able to understand where we can meet people is critically important to how we move. So, and you know what? Changing policy is 95% organizing. It's only 5% better ideas. So that's what you all are doing right here, and we appreciate all the great organizing you're doing.
Yes, well, thank you, Sam, for being here. I'm so grateful.
Pleasure.
All right. So if you want to stay in the after chat, we're going to really have some time today, Sam. You're welcome to. I know that maybe you're getting ready for session, people. Can you believe we're going to be flowing into that soon too? So
Right.
That's just crazy.
That's the first thing I thought of as Sam was closing. I thought, well, we certainly have plenty to do to keep us busy between, we are 365. That's what I keep saying about Cova Coalition. Same for Network Nova. We're 365.
I think we're going to probably change some of that too. I'm thinking just teasing, but I just want to remind
you just want to be 360, maybe.
Yeah,
359. 359.
Before we move on, I want you guys to react to everything you heard. I want to remind our community, we're going to go to the after chat, and I'm glad you have your hands up already. I'm really excited you're here with us and we could talk. I want to make sure we also keep the chat in a place where people can listen and learn and be in their space. Okay. And so I appreciate that too. So go ahead. Fennell, what are some of your thoughts? And weren't we smart getting Sam on? I just thought that slide presentation so helped me,
Yeah, I think the slide presentation was great. And I've been hearing some of that all along, that there are these bright spots. There are these glimmers of light that are coming through, because all is not lost. It really isn't. And but I do think that you do have to give people time to be in their feelings. And I think that's really important. And then the other thing that I just think is so important is nobody's right all the time. So everybody will have all of these ideas about coulda, shoulda, woulda, dida, all of that stuff, but nobody is right all the time. And that's why the grassroots are so important, is because when you're not right, we listen to each other and you have the ability to pivot so that you are not wasting your time doing things that's not helpful.
Right. And when you're in a community like this is when we realize that no one holds the truth. We all hold the truth. Yeah. And we won't see that if we're not coming together. I do want to mention Grassroots. virginiagrassroots.org if you are looking for a group in your area. I've been seeing a lot of that in the chat. Please, go to that website so that you can get what you need in your own community. And of course, we always want to see you here every Friday to get that spiritual uplift and be around people who understand you and share the same language.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I want to remind everybody in this room that Virginia held, we held our seats. We held on. We didn't get the, CD2, but we held that majority we were looking for, at least. We didn't go backwards. We still want to flip that seat. And we made some really great gains because people ran in those rural areas. Really good candidates ran. And we see that those numbers went up because that we did do the work in there. And so I just really am proud of that and proud of the people that ran and all that kind of stuff. So I want to also say that probably we have a show next week, which is the 15th, and we'll then be taken off for Thanksgiving. And I think we're going to take off the next 2 Fridays. We're not going anywhere. We're just taking a break, and then we need some planning time as well. So we hope you'll join us next Friday as well. And then we will take 2 Fridays off and then be back December 6th. So yes.
One other thing, Katherine, that I just wanted to say for folks who are here is that in the after chat, we are going to have an opportunity to hear from Miss Margaret. She's got some thoughts that she'll want to share. And so for those who love hearing from Miss Margaret, who are not typically in the after chat, you may want to hang out today so that you can hear what she thinks about everything.
Yes. I am so looking forward. I love the lineup already. So, and remember that it is a share. We're really still in our space of feelings. So I appreciate everybody being here. I want to thank Simon Rosenberg from Hopium Chronicles for coming, and also Delegate Sam Rasoul. Just what a great presentation. Remind me of that truth, that love, and that grit. And, and thank you if you're supporting us today, because we want to be here. We want to grow. We want to be as powerful as the Midas touch someday, run by women. And that last thing that Sam said is, let us fucking be who we want to be. I mean, let women be, for goodness sake.
Let women lead in their own right.
Let them lead in our own right. And we're going to lead you right to the other side of the after chat.